We've got the Christmas Day games. We're talking about the Chiefs and the Steelers in Pittsburgh. It's on Netflix Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern. Sean Koerner, you're up first.
Well, if I can't convince you on an official prop, I am screwed. So let's just pull a Costanza here. Let's pull a Costanza here. I'm gonna go with an over. I'm gonna go with Chiefs Steelers over 43. This isn't just any over though. It's a luck over. This game has a rating of plus 5.4. Nick will have much more on that in his segment coming up, so stay tuned for that. But this does seem to set up to be more of a higher scoring game on the short week because the Steelers could be without both starting cornerbacks. Both Joey Porter Jr. and Dante Jackson are opening up the week questionable. This is a very short week, so it's going to be less likely for these types of players to be able to heal up in time to play. Safety Deshaun Elliott might also miss his third straight game, and Minkah Fitzpatrick was kind of in his role, lining up in the box a lot more last week, and he blew an assignment. He left Isaiah Likely wide open for a touchdown. I think Minkah is excellent, but again, if he's switching up his role in the short term, it could cause for miscommunications like that. I could see the Chiefs taking advantage of that with their excellent tight end duo of Travis Kelce and Noah Gray. Plus the Chiefs just had Hollywood Brown made his debut last week, and he looked excellent. And he's the key for them to maybe bring back sort of that explosiveness to their offense. So I think that's going to help them, heading for their potential three-peat. But, they also might be without Chris Jones here, who's dealing with a calf injury. He is the heart and soul of this defense. So if he's out, that's going to be a massive blow. Meanwhile, the Steelers might be getting back George Pickens. So that's going to be a boost. And what I love to see was, they were starting to use Jaylen Warren early in the game. They weren't waiting to get behind and whatnot. They just used Jaylen Warren early and often last week. So, if they're using him early on in this game, I think that's going to help as opposed to, thumping Najee Harris up the middle. So I think there's a lot of signal here for the over. And again, this is a luck over. So that's the main reason why I love it.
Yeah, also the Chiefs with Joe Tooney at left tackle now, moving him over from guard. He's just been much better than anyone they've had play in that position. And while Patrick Mahomes did injure his ankle, he looked fine yesterday. He was getting the ball out incredibly fast. I think that plays to their strengths. I like the points in this game. I like this bet a lot, Sean Koerner. So don't dismay. Do not worry. Simon, what's your play?
Can you imagine someone just 10 years ago telling us that we have football on Netflix on a Wednesday for Christmas? It's bizarre world. You gotta
It's
enjoy
such a
it.
bizarre. Honestly, it's thrown off my whole day. Like I feel like, wait, what am I researching right now? What am I talking about? There are games on Wednesday. The whole thing is throwing me for a loop.
The NFL is literally trying to see if we can be sick of football, and I'm not. I love it.
No,
I love this so much. The fact that this is 1 o'clock, just another excuse not to have to talk to relatives at your family function. So, yeah, I'm going chalk here, and a lot. I feel like Sean touched on a lot of it. I'm going the Chiefs -2.5, and we know the trends, but it really is all about the injuries for that Pittsburgh side. Like even if they do get back Pickens, he's not going to be right. Like I feel like he'll be rushing back to get in the spot because they already talked about that might be a 4-week injury. This puts him at 3 weeks since the injuries happened. So that's an interesting predicament. Then all the injuries to their secondary and defense. While on the flip side, the receiving core has gotten better with the addition of Hollywood Brown for this Chiefs offense. And we saw that a little bit, even with the hampered Mahomes, they were able to push the ball downfield. And we kind of saw in that Ravens game when Porter went out, they just kept attacking the players that came in for him on the field. Like that was a big deal for Lamar to attack. You don't think Mahomes and Andy Reid saw that? So the biggest thing too are just the trends here, right? I mean, you talk all the time about the number for the Chiefs. If this is 3.5, which I think we all agree should be with all the injuries to the Pittsburgh and being a short week, it's not. It's 2.5. It's still such a key number when it's Mahomes and it's under 2.5. We know he's 26-1 against the spread in this exact spot. Whenever it's under 3 or he's an underdog, he's been money for us. And on the even more surprising side, Andy Reid in his career, when it's between -3 and +3, this is shocking to me because you have to think he had Alex Smith over this entire span. This is since 2015. He's 30-15 against the spread when this number is. So it really is about playing the trends here. I love to play the dog, especially Tom and his dog, but I don't think the books have shifted this number enough. I think all the value still is on the Chiefs at -2.5 right now.
Well, look, if we have to bet the Chiefs at 2.5, and now the past 2 weeks, the Chiefs have won when they were favorites of more than three, they're leaving us with no options to ever fade the Chiefs. We're kind of screwed if this is how it's going to play out. Raybon, what do you got?
So Noah Gray, anytime touchdown at plus 360. And I think he's undervalued in a market because all the talk is going to be about, the Chiefs wide receiving core is finally back to, where it was, at different points in Mahomes' career. You got Hollywood Brown, you got DeAndre Hopkins. But what happens usually is, in game, like last week with the Steelers, when their cornerback went down, they were getting targeted at the receiver position. But now there's going to be time to prepare. So what you usually see is the defensive coordinator, he's going to help his cornerbacks out more. He's going to leave safeties over the top and whatnot. And so I think that opens it up for Noah Gray, especially because any interior attention still has to go to Travis Kelce. So Noah Gray is tied for second on the Chiefs with 6 end zone targets. And Pittsburgh has allowed 3 touchdowns to tight ends over the past 3 games. Noah Gray has 5 touchdowns in the past 6 games. And he could actually play a little more for Kelce because Kelce just played 65 snaps and he played 67 the week before that. That's the most he's played in a 2-week period for the entire season. So I think there's a lot of value here on Noah Gray, who had a quiet game last week, but has really been upping his touchdown production over this past month and a half.
Like it. I like Sean Koerner in the over 43 more. Look, you can already see in the Action Network app. I bet it this morning at 43 because I was worried it was going to 43.5. You might want to take a crack at it because it could get to 43.5, but I think this lines up to clear that number. I think bookmakers are setting it too low based on the Steelers defense and how the Chiefs have been playing this year. But I think the Chiefs offense is getting better and the Steelers defense is a little bit hobbled. Give me the 43. Access to all of our experts' picks as soon as they happen. What about our pro prop projections powered by Sean Koerner and Chris Raybon? You get all that plus real-time bet and money percentages with Action Pro. Use code POWER20. Get $20 off the annual rate, POWER20, for $20 off. Okay, the other big game on Christmas. We got Houston. We got Baltimore in Houston. We got a total that's around 46.5 or 47. We got the Texans as home underdogs. Koerner, what's your bet?
I'm going to go with the under 46.5 here. And to be honest, I think the best Christmas gift this year is the fact that both these games are luck totals. This is a luck under of minus 7.1. Again, Nick's going to have more on that in his segment coming right up, I promise. But I like this one as well. This, especially with a handful of key injuries for each offense. Texans just lost wide receiver Tank Dell, sounds like an ACL tear, so he's out for the rest of the season. That was, a brutal injury, and they're already, without Stephon Diggs. Granted, they still have one of the best receivers in the game in Nico Collins, but it does make it easier to pay more attention to him without now, Dell in the lineup. Plus, Rijkaard Shaq Mason left the game with a knee injury. He's week to week, so it seems like he'll be out. And his backup, Kenyon Green, has really struggled this year, so that's a downgrade on the offensive line. And the Ravens, they lost Justice Hill, where clearly Derrick Henry is their running back, but he's been a nice compliment for them. Their main pass catching back, so he's unlikely to play with the concussion. Zay Flowers picked up a shoulder injury. Again, much less likely to play on the short week for some of these. And center Tyler Linderbaum missed practice with a back injury. He's been kind of missing practice here and there with that, so I don't know if that's a concern or a maintenance day. But if he's out, that's massive. Either way, just so many key injuries to monitor on offense, and this being a luck under means I like the under 46.5 here.
Yeah, it's a tricky game to try to handicap because there's so many injuries. You mentioned Mason, you mentioned Tank Dell, Jimmy Ward, who was in for Jeff Petrie. Now he's out in the Texans backfield. It's a tough game, really tough game. Simon, what do you got?
Yeah, that's why I was going to take Texas full game, but with, like you said, all those injuries, I just don't think they're able to last come the second half. The Ravens are the perfect team to wear teams down, so I'm cheating here a little bit, Chad, going with the Texans first half plus 3.5, and it's really about this number moving. It was literally 3, the last 24 hours, and then kind of the injury news came out, and they moved up 3.5 just because all the money's just been pouring in on this Ravens team. But I don't think people realize this Houston team has been really good in the first half. I know they didn't cover last week against the Chiefs in that first half, but I really did think that came down to just bad luck. And this spot, this is a nice bounce back for a team that is now 12-3 on the season against the spread in the first half. Like that's a pretty good number. It's just all about how prepared they are coming to these games, and the fact that this is a short week for both these teams. And the Ravens on the other side, they're on the road, so they might have had one day of practice, then a walkthrough, and now they're in Houston for this game. That's a quick turnaround after playing a really tough divisional game. So I definitely think this is a nice spot for this Texans team, especially early on, with the hook at 3.5.
Yeah, it's such a tricky game. I saw that you had in the script, you had the Texans as your initial pick, and I'm like, wow, that is an aggressively bold move, because it also feels like the kind of game where the Ravens could just roll over this team because they have so many injuries, and CJ has just not been playing as well because he's been defended so differently, and their offensive line has been so bad this year. Raybon, give me something.
All right, Chad. Well, I know you like long odds and some nice juice here. So let's see if I can convince you on a 10-1 anytime touchdown prop. Dare Ogunbowale for the Houston Texans. He is their pass catching, passing down, 2-minute drill running back. Played 16 snaps last week. And we've seen just Joe Mixon, their starter, seen a little bit of a downtick in general in snaps. He was playing 75 to 80%, about 6 games ago to 3 games ago. And then the last 2, he's been down into the mid 60s. But if you look at the Texans, and especially if you think they're going to maybe be playing from behind, after Nico Collins, who has 10 end zone targets for the Texans, there's only 4 other Texans that have more than 2. Tank Dell, out. Stephon Diggs, out. John Mechie, questionable, missed last week. And Ogunbowale. So Ogunbowale should have a good opportunity here to score. And Baltimore, they've only given up 8 rushing touchdowns to running backs. That's the 8th fewest, but they have given up 4 receiving scores. That's the 6th most. So that just kind of plays into the potential game script. And just with this team playing, 3 games in 11 days and whatnot, I think Ogunbowale is going to continue to see snaps in the passing game. So give me Ogunbowale 10-1 anytime touchdown.
I love it. You couldn't get me with your other anytime touchdown props. This one, I'm all in. Joe Mixon, in the second half of the season, something's been going on. He's under 60 yards in his past 4 games after having such a good start to the year. I like the way you break this down logically. All these guys are out. Somebody has to be a target. Give me Ogunbowale plus 1,000. Love it for an anytime touchdown. All right, we've talked about the luck rankings a couple of times. Koerner has mentioned him as my favorite stat in the Action Network universe. We hit another luck rankings total yesterday with the Cardinals and the Panthers. For those who want to know more about the luck rankings, check them out in the Action app. Check them out, actionnetwork.com. We got a couple matchups. Koerner said, Steelers and the Chiefs, we got a luck total on the over. Ravens and Texans, we got a luck total. Dr. Nick is going to come in. He's going to tell us a little bit more about what's going on. Dr. Nick, take it away. You guys, 56% against closing lines this year.
Yeah,
Very
for the luck
nice.
totals, very good.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm gonna have to parlay Raybon's touchdown picks here. Maybe check out Parlay Express in the Action app. Is he on the touchdown show after this? I mean, that's what it feels like it should be, right? So, but anyway, so I'm gonna go to the 2 Christmas games. I'm right there with Sean on both of these. Pittsburgh, Kansas City. This one is a luck over. Make sure you get the over 43. I was lucky enough to get a over 42.5 last night at a prominent book in Las Vegas, but they opened 44. Or I shouldn't say they opened, but overnight when I woke up, they were at 44. So make sure you get the 43. 43, a key number. 44, also a key number for totals. This is a luck total plus 5.4. Luck overs this year. I know we don't get a ton of them every year, but they are a perfect 6-0 this year to the over, including that one you mentioned yesterday for Arizona versus Carolina. They're 67% to the over during the last 7 years. That's a 72-game sample size. Personally, I make this around 44 points, just a shade under 44. But as the injuries start to pile up and we get more confirmation on news, I think I'll probably shade over 44 on this as well. Sean mentioned all those injuries, right? Joey Porter Jr., very unlikely to play. Dante Jackson, both starting cornerbacks for the Steelers. And then Chris Jones, he's very unlikely to play. A grade 1 calf strain is very susceptible to re-injury. You certainly don't want Chris Jones re-injuring his calf and making it worse before the playoffs. So I would expect him to be out as well. Hollywood Brown looked really good in the first game. This is his second game back, so probably more, continuity there. But the only real question, right? Will short rest hurt this? Just a few days rest. And then also the Chiefs, right? They're favored and not by 3, as Simon was mentioning, -2.5. If the Chiefs are leading in the second half, they tend to be a second half under team. So I did notice in that 43, the same book posting that 43, the first half over is 20.5, and the second half line is 21.5. So maybe going first half 20.5 as well might be the most prudent play here, but I still like over 43 for the first game.
Dr. Nick with 2 shameless plugs, one for a touchdown show, one for the Parlay Express handle. Follow it in the Action Network app. That is very professional. Well done. What's your second play here?
Yeah, of course, the luck under for Baltimore and Houston, a luck total -7.1. Grab this at 47.5 late yesterday as well. It's 46.5 everywhere now. So I think at this point, you probably can wait because it looks like the money is kind of coming in on the over here. 47, a very key number. So potentially want to wait here and make sure you get the 47. Look, the Baltimore Ravens, I know they put up a ton of points, but against top half defenses, they only average, and I say only, right? They only average just over 25 expected points per game versus against bottom half defenses, just over 29. So that's 4 points lower versus top half defenses. And well, the Houston Texans are number 1 in defensive DVOA. Sean mentioned the Houston offensive injuries. I got the same ones listed here. Baltimore, some offensive injuries, 2 questionable linemen as well. And then, of course, again, the short rest, this actually may help the under here. So I definitely like the under. I just would wait on this because the total's probably going to get pushed up as a prime time, Christmas Day game, 2 name recognition teams. I think you can wait and grab a 47.
Yeah, by the afternoon, everyone's a little tipsy. They're like, yeah, of course this is going over, and everyone's piling in. All right, Dr. Nick, thank you very much.
All right, B-Matt, let's move to Christmas Day. Game 1, Chiefs Steelers, looking at a total of 44. And interesting that you see plus odds right at the top. Isaiah Pacheco around plus 165. And if you look further down the board, you see Kareem Hunt at plus 200. I think sportsbooks are trying to protect themselves a little bit because the running game hasn't really shaken out the way that we thought it was going to be. It's been pretty much a running back by committee. But after Pacheco, you've got Najee Harris at plus 165, George Pickens at plus 165 as of Monday afternoon. Still not sure if he's actually going to play, but he is trending towards playing. Then you've got Travis Kelce plus 175, Xavier Worthy at plus 260, followed by DeAndre Hopkins 280. And then you've got Jalen Warren, Calvin Austin, and Pat Freiermuth to round out that top 10. B-Matt, I think you should just tell us, we're going to collab on these bets because out of all the games that we looked at for this week and we texted each other immediately, these were the 2 guys that were just consensus. We didn't even talk about it before. And it was like, these are the 2 guys that we want. Tell us, what are the 2 bets that we're collabing on for this game?
Yeah, so to set the scene, like last night when we knew the odds were going to be coming out at some point, and so I think we both were kind of, refreshing. I ended up sending you a text, with my 4 favorite, and both from this game were the same. So we thought, let's not overthink it. Let's just go with it. So we're going to go DeAndre Hopkins, anytime touchdown at plus 280, and Pat Freiermuth, anytime touchdown at plus 290. And so, look, with DeAndre Hopkins, last week was the week of Marquise Brown, Marquise Brown, and then we had a lot of Xavier Worthy. And so I look at this matchup, though, a lot of man coverage. DeAndre Hopkins is the Chiefs' best receiver against man coverage. I also look at the fact that DeAndre Hopkins hasn't been with the team very long, but when you look at who leads the team in red zone targets, it's DeAndre Hopkins. Also has 8 of them inside the 10-yard line. So, look, that's just a high volume in an offense that has Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. So it's something that I can get behind very easily. And
well, with Hopkins, like the one that you kind of just alluded to that about the man coverage, like Steelers play a lot of it. It's like the 6th highest rate in the NFL. And Joey Porter Jr. might miss this game. He ended up leaving last game with a knee injury of some sort, but
Yeah.
I don't know if he's going to play this week. And that's only going to help Hopkins, who has like a 25% target share, leads the team in yards per route run. But yeah, so I think Hopkins at plus 280, that's a very solid look. If you wanted to take Xavier Worthy at plus 260, I can't really argue with you because the red zone looks and the volume alone are staggering. But I think Hopkins, as far as matchup, is the best option right now for the Chiefs. Tell us a little bit more about why you liked Muth as well, because I have a couple reasons, but I wanted to hear yours.
Yeah, I'll go quick. I think I just, took up a lot of air in the room with my explanation on that first one. So I'll let you kind of take it home here. But look, I just think when you look at Freiermuth, I mean, we've talked about this and we played tight ends against the Chiefs this year. I mean, it's not, this is not a weakness, but this is one of the areas that you can attack them is the slot and the tight end. So I look and you go, okay, Freiermuth has scored 3 touchdowns in the last 4 games. He had a streak of 3 in a row prior to last week. I still don't think George Pickens plays, and that's not based on me being a medical expert. It's just based on the fact that it's a short week. He wasn't able to be ready for this last one, and I don't know that he's out practicing today. So I still think even if he does play, I think, I like it. And anytime you get near the goal line, Russ has always liked going to tight ends, and now he's got his go-to tight end near the goal line in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I'm going to be optimistic and think that he plays. And part of the reason why he didn't play like last week against Baltimore was to hold him out for this game. Again, that's me looking at it from a glass half full mindset.
Oh, now you're making me sound like a pessimist, huh?
Well, that's okay. We got to balance each other out here. So, but Muth, let's talk about him a little bit more because you brought up a good point about that Chiefs defense because they're top 10 in defensive DVOA for pass defense, but 19th against tight ends. And they're bottom 5 in targets, catches, and yards to the position, 6 touchdowns allowed. Dalton Schultz, for example, scored on them last week. Really what we're doing with Muth is we're just praying that we don't get vultured by somebody like Michael Pruitt or, Cordero Patterson. Like that was such a joke last week. He played 5 snaps against the Ravens and scored a touchdown in that game. Very improbable touchdown too. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So DeAndre Hopkins at plus 280, Pat Freiermuth at plus 290. Those are the 2 bets that we're going to be collabing on for Steelers Chiefs. Now, let's move now to the second game of Christmas Day. That is Ravens Texans. Ravens Texans, we're looking at a total of about 46.5. Right at the top of the odds for touchdowns, you've got Derrick Henry at minus 160, followed by Joe Mixon at minus 130. So sportsbooks are kind of indicating that they think this is going to be very much a run-first approach game, which makes sense because the Ravens, they do lead the NFL in rush attempts per game. But right after them, Nico Collins, somebody that we were on last week at plus 170 against the Chiefs, another man coverage unit that he is facing all the way down to plus 125 now, probably because of that brutal Tank Dell injury that I don't really ever want to watch again. But at the same time, that is kind of why we're seeing those odds now for Nico around plus 125. I think the biggest surprise out of the top 10, Rashad Bateman all the way down to plus 125, one of the deep threats for the Ravens. Then you're starting to see Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, Lamar Jackson, Isaiah Likely, and I just mentioned him, Dalton Schultz, rounded out the top 10. Robert Woods at plus 500, who will likely elevate his status, him and Xavier Hutchinson with Tank Dell being out. But in this game, BMAT, on the Ravens side, I'm going to go with Lamar Jackson here, around plus 240.
Love it.
I like Lamar to score in this game. Now, he's only got 3 touchdowns this year. I think in this matchup, he's going to have to run a little bit more because this Texans run defense, especially their defensive line, really set up to slow down running backs. I think they could slow Derrick Henry down a little bit just so that way they don't allow those big, long runs. And I think that what that's going to happen is that's going to make Lamar maybe have to scramble, especially on 3rd down or 3rd and distance. And opposing quarterbacks are averaging just around 6 yards per carry. That's around top 10 in the NFL allowed. And last week, not that I want to get too married to what we just saw, but Patrick Mahomes ran for a touchdown on a bum ankle on that defense. And it was so improbable, the first touchdown of the game. Your guy Kenny, I remember he had it as well. And when you look at how Lamar has played in a dome this season, 2 games in a dome against the Chargers and the Cowboys, 22 carries, 112 rushing yards, touchdown in each game. I think Lamar Jackson is a solid look here to score, especially in a game where we don't have to deal with the elements. It's going to be in Houston. So Lamar Jackson is who I like on the Ravens to score. Who do you like to score for the Baltimore Ravens in this game?
Yeah, I like Lamar Jackson. I also feel like you're leaving out one important factor. Remember, his mom and agent had specifically said 2 games ago that he needs to start running more. So something to watch out for moving forward. So love the
Mom
pick, but
speak.
I'm gonna go Mark Andrews anytime touchdown at plus 185. And I'm going right back to the well here. I mean, this guy now 4 touchdowns in the last 4 games. All he's doing is kind of, it's like, I guess at the beginning of the year, we were all kind of waiting, like, when does Mark Andrews go back, revert to form, or will he? Pre-injury, when he was seemingly catching touchdown passes every week, and now he's catching touchdown passes every week. So I like this matchup. I think Lamar Jackson has clearly shown that he loves throwing the ball to the tight ends around the goal line, and even after Isaiah Likely scored, Mark Andrews had 2 red zone targets and scored on one of them last week. So I think Mark Andrews, if we're going to keep getting odds, it was, just above plus 200. I liked it a little more there, but I still think for a guy that's scoring basically each week that I'm taking that. And then on the Texans side, I'm going right back. I didn't go to him, and I kind of was kicking myself for not playing it, but Dalton Schultz, anytime touchdown at plus 340. And to me, this is just a process of elimination. Like we talked about Tank Dell being out. Stephon Diggs is out. I'm hope maybe John Mechie's back, but at this point, it's one of the areas where the Ravens have been getting beat. It's by the tight end, and now Dalton Schultz, after not scoring in the first half or 2/3 of the season, now has 2 touchdowns in his last 3 games, and I think he's going to have to become a focal point of the offense, much like we saw Cade Otton when Chris Godwin had gone down for the Bucs. So I think that kind of becomes that type of role, and he gets a little more included there.
Well, I
What
love
about
that
what?
pitch for Schultz, though, man. Like Schultz, we saw in the second half when Tank, I mean, I don't want to talk about it, but he got hurt and it was bad. And you could see his role just slowly increase as the game went on. And I think you made up a great point, or made a great point rather, about Cade Otton, where how much he was relied on in that game against the Chiefs, for example, even with Mike Evans out, for example. So
Yeah,
I think I'm going to tail you on Dalton Schultz. So
let's go.
impromptu collab. I'm gonna tail BMAT out here on Dalton Schultz. But I just wanted to bring up as well the one thing about Mark Andrews and why initially we were going to collab on Mark Andrews. I ended up pivoting over to Lamar because these touchdown odds are changing fast. Like
Yes.
so they came out this morning and they've just been updating the entire day. And so as of Monday afternoon, Mark Andrews, we talked about it, opened up around like plus 210 and he's just slowly dropping. He might even be, I saw him as low as like plus 150 at another sports book. So not to say that and the other thing that I would bring up about Mark Andrews too, but before we talk about Schultz is that defensively, the Texans are pretty good against tight ends. I don't think that matters because Mark Andrews, if you go look at the top 5 teams that have allowed touchdowns to tight ends this year, it's him who's doing it. You look at the Chargers, the Browns, the Broncos is actually the only team I could see right now in that top 5 that he did not score in. The rest of them, he has done his work. But Dalton Schultz, somebody that I think we always want to bet on, but he just wasn't involved in the offense, and the passing offense was struggling without Nico Collins. And again, in a matchup now facing against the Ravens that are bottom 7 in defensive DVOA against tight ends, I think Dalton Schultz here is a solid look, especially at plus 340. So those are the bets that we're going to do for Texans Ravens. He is going to be on Mark Andrews. I'm going to be on Lamar Jackson, and we are collabing on Dalton Schultz for that game. So BMAT, before we talk about the Boxing Day game for Seahawks Bears, I think we should do a parlay for the Christmas Day games. And I kind of, like I said, I really like Mark Andrews. It was just the odds that kind of threw me off. But maybe what we could do is if we pair Mark Andrews with somebody like maybe like DeAndre Hopkins, we could probably do a nice little same game or same day parlay there for that. So I think that's what we should do. So let's take Mark Andrews and we'll pair him with DeAndre Hopkins. If you go to DraftKings right now and you parlay those two together, it comes out to around plus 920. Not bad there. I think we'll do like a half unit on that.
Yeah.
And then that way, if we get those, we're feeling really good on Christmas Day. Maybe be able to go for a little bit of Boxing Day sales as well. Maybe buy a TV that I can go punch a hole in when the Cowboys eventually lose another game.